Afternoon, everyone. We're just waiting for a few more people to arrive, so thanks for your patience. Okay, so we'll make a start in just a minute. Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name's Tom Morgan, and I'm part of the team who have helped to develop the new SPS plant health controls for plants and plant products moving between Great Britain and the EU. So that's what we'll be presenting on this afternoon. I'll be leading the presentation today, and we have DEFRA colleagues on hand for the Q&A section at the end. And the DEFRA colleagues who will be part of the Q&A panel are Victoria Clark and Jason Pollock, who are policy delivery leads for plant health at DEFRA. And we're also joined by Alex Benyon from the Plant Health IT team, who will be doing a short demo of iPaths. That's the IT system where traders will need to make their pre-notification for certain plants and plant products. Regarding the Q&A, feel free to start adding your questions in by using the Teams Q&A function. We're only able to answer general questions about the border target operating model timeline changes and other BTOM proposals. If you have any specific questions about the products that you're importing, or we are unable to get to your question during the session, you can email these to the Plant Health mailbox, which is on the screen. Okay, so what the session will cover, so the border target operating model, I'll refer to that as the BTOM from now on, continues the phased import regime for plant health controls on goods moving between GB and the EU, Switzerland and Liechtenstein. There are two key milestones for when SPS controls will be introduced, so the 31st of January 2024 and 30th April 2024. This session will focus on the certification requirements that are coming into force for medium risk plants and plant products on 31st January 2024. And we are hosting a separate session on 25th October for the border check requirements coming into force on 30th April 2024. You can sign up for this via the QR code or link on the screen. So I'll just leave them there for 10 seconds or so. Okay, so as for the agenda, we'll start with giving you an outline of the new certification requirements coming into force on 31st January 2024. And then based on your feedback from previous sessions, we will highlight the SPS touch points that a medium risk plant must go through when being imported into Great Britain from the EU. Within this example, we will also give further information on ePhyto, iPaths, and groupage. Before we get going, to give us an understanding of your knowledge of the BTOM and import controls, could you please answer the poll that's on the screen? Okay, going to move to the next slide now. And first, and apologies, just briefly lost my place here. 1 moment, bear with me. Okay, so let's get going. The border target operating model introduces a new risk-based approach to border controls. Goods have been categorized into the risk groups high, medium, and low, and controls have been appropriately weighted against the risk. You can check the risk category of your goods by scanning the relevant QR code. You can also find the risk categories under the trade section on the Plant Health portal. Data informing the categorization is ongoing and will be constantly monitored. Therefore, the allocation of commodities to categories is dynamic and subject to change on the analysis of risk. Commodities could be moved to another category if the risk dictates or over a longer time frame. But overall, the risk categorization is intended to be stable and provide consistency. Traders will be given plenty of notice of any changes to commodity categories. So let's get into what's happening for each risk group from 31st January. For BTOM high-risk goods, at this stage, there are not any changes. If you import high-risk goods from the EU, such as plants for planting, please keep pre-notifying and obtaining a phytosanitary certificate before your goods enter Great Britain. EU goods will be subject to border checks at place of destinations. For non-EU goods, nothing has changed, and you will still be subject to the checks at the BCPs or CPs. Now, for medium risk goods, from 31st January 2024, there are some changes happening to BTOM medium risk goods. All medium risk goods imported into GB from the EU will now require a phytosanitary certificate before entry into GB, alongside the pre-notification that was introduced in January 2022. Medium risk goods imported into GB from Ireland will also now require pre-notification and a phytosanitary certificate before entry into Great Britain, as the initial easements put in place will now come to an end. This now aligns with the controls for the rest of the EU. Medium risk non-EU goods will still require pre-notification and a phytosanitary certificate before entering Great Britain and will still continue to have their checks undertaken at a BCP or CP. Okay, changing on to the next slide. And for low risk goods imported into Great Britain from the EU, these goods will be exempt from controls at the border. Instead, these goods will be subject to enhanced inland monitoring via surveillance at the most appropriate locations and times, and evidence-led visits to premises by plant health inspectors. If your EU goods were previously classified as medium risk but are now classed as low, this means you will no longer need to adhere to medium risk controls unless the goods are recategorized. This applies to fruit and vegetables from the EU from the 17th November 2023. You will no longer be required to pre-notify the arrival of those goods. For low-risk goods imported from non-EU countries to GB countries, you will need to continue obtaining a phytosanitary certificate before your goods enter Great Britain. There are ongoing risk assessments that will look to deregulate goods that do not pose a risk to biosecurity. Trade will be informed well in advance of any changes. So what action do you need to take? We've gone through each risk group and let's highlight exactly what actions you need to take to be ready for the upcoming changes, dependent on whether you're a GB importer, EU exporter, or non-EU exporter. So if you're a GB importer, you need to work with your EU exporters to ensure that they are ready for the incoming certification requirements on medium risk goods. If you're a GB importer who exports from Ireland specifically, start preparing for the phytosanitary certificate and pre-notification on medium risk goods. We hosted an Ireland-specific session, and you can watch this by following the QR code on the screen. If you're an EU exporter, you need to contact the competent authority in your country to find the local plant health inspector to be prepared for the certification requirements on medium risk goods. If you're a non-EU exporter, check the risk category of your goods, and depending on which category your goods fall into, adhere to the relevant import controls. To give us an idea of what stage your organisation is at to prepare for the new import controls, could you please answer the poll on the screen? Thank you very much. Move on to the next slide. So now we've gone over the basics, we're going to run through a working example of the SPS touch points that cut flowers of carnations, a medium risk good, would need to go through from 31st January 2024 when being imported from Italy to Great Britain. Our Italian exporter, Luca, wants to send a consignment of cut flowers, carnations, from Italy to Great Britain. Here are the steps he will need to take. First, he needs to check with the Italian competent authority how to obtain a phytosanitary certificate. This can be a paper-based certificate or an electronically transmitted phytosanitary certificate, which shows that the plant or plant products has been officially inspected, attests that plants and plant products meet the import requirements for entry into Great Britain, and is in conformity with the certifying statement that the plants and plant products are free from pests and diseases. Once the Italian competent authority has conducted an inspection, they will complete and issue a phytosanitary certificate to confirm that the goods are free of pests and diseases. Again, just to reinforce, at the moment, phytosanitary certificates are paper-based, but as part of the BTOM proposals, we will be replacing manual paper-based phytosanitary certificates with digitized certificates through a feature called ePhyto, which will run on the new imports IT system, iPaths. ePhyto has two main aspects: an instant transmission of data through the IT system and an autofill element, which will save trade time when filling pre-notification on iPaths. Digitizing this process will reduce the potential for error and fraud and give DEFRA a rich data set that we can use to target our risk-based checks. This change will be phased in for imports, starting with the trade partners who have the highest volume of trade with Great Britain, and there will be further online sessions around ePhyto and the changes in processes that may occur. So once the paper phytosanitary certificate is signed, the exporter needs to send a PDF copy to the importer, but must ensure the original paper phytosanitary certificate accompanies the goods. Great Britain-based importer or Great Britain person responsible for the load needs to make a pre-notification via the IT system iPaths. Here, the importer or person responsible for the load will also need to complete a common health entry document and upload the PDF copy to the phytosanitary certificate to iPaths as part of the notification. This will also be where the importer needs to select where their goods are going to be checked, whether that's through a BCP or a CP. The pre-notification needs to be submitted at least 4 hours before the goods arrive in Great Britain, if entering via air or all other forms of transport, which is 24 hours, for example, deep sea freight. We've got Alex here from the Plant Health IT team, who's going to do a quick demo on iPaths to show you how to select where your goods will be checked, where to submit your CHED form, and Alex will also show you resources to help find the commodity code and scientific name of your goods. So I'm just going to briefly stop sharing my screen and pass over to Alex.
Great. Right, I'm on. Thank you, Tom. I'm just going to share my screen as well. I don't appear to be able to share my screen, guys. I don't know, Karina or Vicky, if you've banned me from doing so. Sorry, I can't do it at the minute. think they're just working on the background to get my permissions, guys. So whilst they do that, my name's Alex. I work with a junior PM for the inputs team. So I do a lot of the business readiness and the training for IPAFs. So we run our sessions every week, every Wednesday at 9 or 3:30, and we go through IPAFs in great detail. I haven't got lots of time today, so I'm just going to go through the dashboard, kind of what each status means, the BCP page as well, and kind of a little quick rundown of what that means. And then I'll go and talk about two useful tools we've got. So we've got the commodity tariff page, which basically lets you search for a commodity and find the commodity code. And we've also got the synonym tool, which is a new tool that basically allows you to search for plant synonym names, because sometimes one plant you might want to import has lots of different names. Just on time, I can share my screen. Cracking. Right, we'll start with IPAFs. So I'll start with the dashboard. This is the IPAFs dashboard. This is what it looks like. A few little things up at the top before I talk about the statuses. These links up here just allow you to manage your account and add or view team members that can access it, and manage trade partners. If you're a trader, means you can add any agents that represent you, or if you're an agent, you can go on it and view traders that you're allowed to represent, basically. And that is that. So when we raise a notification on IPAFs, we do it from this button up here, create a new notification. We've also got the search function here, fairly self-explanatory. And then we've got all of your notifications. All the pre-notifications Tom was talking about are down below in chronological order. And obviously different statuses mean different things. So I'll just quickly run through those. If you've just raised your pre-notification and you've got your eFITO attached and you've submitted it and it's all good, it will say new on it. So that just means it's just gone through the system and it's brand new. Anything that says draft in grey means you've not yet submitted it. Perhaps you've missed a few different kind of details, or you've not finished adding in your information yet. Anything you see that is in progress means that it's currently going through checks on our side. So so maybe our inspectors are checking through it and making sure the documents all match and such like. Anything green and valid just means it's passed the checks or it's auto cleared and it's made its way into GB. Obviously, if you've got things that are being amended, they'll say amend. And I just want to find, if it says trade partner on it, it means it's been made by an agent who has been authorized to represent you as a trader. I'm just trying to find one that is rejected. Might be on the next page, just to show you what one of those looks like as well. So there's a couple here. If your goods, for whatever reason, didn't make their way into the country because of an issue, it will be rejected. And you can see why that is if you go into view details. And then you go on the checks tab. It will show you which particular check your consignment failed. So for example, this was roses and it didn't pass document check. So perhaps the phyto was wrong, or there was some other document issue that wasn't resolved in time, and therefore the goods were rejected and destroyed. So that is a quick overview of the IPAFs dashboard. What I also want to show you is the notification hub. So when you're raising a new pre-notification on IPAFs, you'll get to this page and you'll basically have to fill out all of these fields you see here in blue that are hyperlinked. And we talked earlier about information about the BCP. So the BCPs in IPAFs are all kind of listed from a drop down. So you just have to find the one your goods are going to be coming into. Of course, pods are going to be the TOM. So in the TOM, the other big change is that BCPs are going to be moving away from pods in April 2024. Don't want to get my dates wrong. And we had a few questions about if pods are here, where can I see them? So certain ports, for example, Dover, should have a pod underneath it. So for some reason, it's not there today, but some of these control points will have the pods underneath, and then you can go in and fill specific pod information on at a further point. The other thing I wanted to raise is we've got control points as well. So from 30th of April 2024, as Tom mentioned earlier, all inspections will be moving to the border, and high risk plants and plant products must come through a BCP, so one of these, or a control point where checks will be carried out. So we've got some links that we'll be sending out about registering a control point as well. But that is essentially it. So when you're raising your notification, you'll select your BCP, you'll select the inspection premises that goes along with that BCP, also the option to do a pod as well for now, and then just the means of transport to the BCP as well. So let's imagine I've got a boat coming into Dover, that means it's a vessel, and then the identification and the document that will attach that will help recognise this particular form of transport. So this is obviously an example, but it would be a ship manifest here if it is a vessel. As you can see, this has been pre-filled in, but essentially you then have to pop in your estimated time and date of arrival at the BCP. And the goods on our side don't get kind of processed for checking by our system until it's within 5 days of arrival. So let's say these goods are coming in Saturday and time of arrival to your best of your knowledge. You have got the chance as well on the dashboard to amend this or alert of early arrival as well. So that is IPAFs. I just want to flag as well that we do run our training sessions every Wednesday. We do send out kind of rolling comms with invites to that. I'll get Karina and the comms team behind this to send out some more links as well. They are quite good. We do have recording, lots of other useful tools like an FAQ as well. The only other two little things I wanted to make you aware of. So we've got the UK integrated online tariff, which is just short for basically finding your commodity code. So you can use this page. If I type in apples, it will give me the commodity code for apples if I find what I mean. So there we go. And essentially it gives you all of the import information, so things like duties and the commodity codes as well, which you can then use to do your pre-notification in IPAFs. There we go. So this is all the information about the commodity codes as well on all the commodities related to apples. Obviously, you can choose which ones you need the information for on the bottom. The last little thing, I think that's all I've got to say about the tariff tool. We'll pop these links in a kind of roundup email as well afterwards. The only other thing I've got to mention, this is a relatively new tool, only a few weeks old. It's the synonym list for plants on IPAF. So essentially, lots of plants or plant products have a preferred scientific name when being imported, and they also will have a synonym that might be commonly used more than the scientific name. So essentially, to find this out, we've got a spreadsheet here that I've got opened earlier. You've got a list on one side of all the species names and whether that particular name is preferred. So if we can see here, some of them will have the same EPO code, which essentially means they are the same good, and there'll be certain preferred names. So we can see the two of them here have the same EPO code, but this is the name at the top you'll want to put in, and down here as well, four of them, sorry, with the same EPO code, but a preferred name. So that means these three are synonyms for this particular good. So I can also search that. So if I search this longer one on my search tab, it will show me all the other species names for this and which one is usable in IPAFs. That's essentially it. So I encourage you guys to have a little play, if necessary, with the synonym tool and get your way around IPAFs. But yeah, that is me done, Tom. I'm going to pass along back to you.
Thank you very much, Alex. That was really helpful. I'm just going to share my screen again and we'll retrace our steps to the slide that we need to be on. So just bear with me 1 second while I do that. Okay, so now we're on the fifth step. So picking up on that sequence that needed to be followed. So that here the importer will notify the driver of the route, and the importer or person responsible for the load must ensure the driver brings these goods to the selected BCP if selected for inspection. Businesses importing under the groupage model into Great Britain will need to plan ahead, considering that different goods may have distinct requirements. If the lorry contains multiple consignments and we need to look at one, the vehicle will need to be unloaded to the extent necessary to access the consignments selected for checks. And BCPs will not be equipped to store goods after checks have been completed, except to detain non-compliant goods. Therefore, the vehicle must wait for the checks to be completed and, assuming it's found to be in compliance, the consignment reloaded before moving on from the BCP. Okay, and so step 6 says goods arrive to Great Britain. On arrival to Great Britain, there's no need for any SPS checks at the border for the cut flowers from the EU, so they can go into free circulation and onto their destination. This step will change from April 2024, and you can find out more about this in our April focused online session. Sign up for this using the QR code or link on the screen. And as a reminder, high-risk goods from the EU in January 2024 can be checked at places of destination, and non-EU goods must be inspected at a BCP or CP. So I'll just leave that code on the board on the screen for you for a second if you need to sign up. Okay, so step 7, goods have arrived to Luca from the importer, and Luca, sorry, let me start that again. The goods have arrived from Luca to the importer, and as we can see, Luca is happy. So we've come to the end of the presentation part of this session, and we hope that you found it useful. Could you please let us know by answering the poll on the screen how confident you are of how prepared your organisation will be for January 2024? Okay, I think that my colleague's just launching that poll now, one moment. Okay, thank you very much for answering that poll. It's really helpful. And I will now invite my colleagues who are part of the Q&A session to come on. So I think we have Victoria and Jason, and we can start answering your questions. Hi, Victoria. Hi, Jason. Just going to review some of the questions that have come in. Okay, so firstly, we have a question for Jason. So Jason, the question we have here is some commodity and EPPO codes are not linked on iPaths based on the Excel spreadsheets available to us. When will these be updated? As yet, this is blocking CSV uploads as the correct commodity codes aren't being matched. We've emailed but had no response to this query. So hopefully, Jason, that question's clear.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's probably a couple of things we might need a little bit of clarity on, but I'll pick that up as we go along. So generally speaking, like you say, because EPO codes are generally updated by the European Plant Protection Organization, it is iterative, so they will change and remove codes, and we obviously have to keep our database aligned with theirs. So there are examples of, like you say, where there may be new EPO codes for new genus or species that have been classified that we need to update. But generally speaking, like you say, our database is aligned with the EPO side of things. I think one of the things that you may find is that at the moment, and I believe it actually is today, there's quite a large rollout on iPaths in terms of the updates of those EPO codes. So hopefully the issue that you're facing in terms of some of the misalignment should go away once that rollout is complete. And I believe that should be by the end of today. But two things to highlight there. If you are coming across problems in terms of the commodity codes and what genus and species they're linked to, obviously Alex has shown you at the start the commodity code lookup. So once you've identified the preferred name of your genus and species, you can use that Excel spreadsheet on the Plant Health portal to see which commodity codes are available for your category group. So for instance, if you're bringing in a tomato, you will see in that table that there's a different list for the commodity codes that could be used for tomato seed, the tomato fruit, the parts of plant, or the plants for planting, and you can select the appropriate code from there. However, let's say, for instance, the specific species isn't available within IPAFS, and like you say, there isn't a synonym associated with it, then generally speaking, what we would do is ask you to put the classification to the genus level and then contact either the email address here or the APHA email address to highlight that obviously there weren't any species related EPO codes there, and we can investigate that with EPO and raise it. However, taking a further step forward is if you find that the genus isn't there either, either because there isn't a synonym for it and it's just not there, then obviously please do ring the CIT help desk. We do have procedures in place, but you have to contact them in the event that you can't put on a particular commodity because, like you said, maybe the genus isn't there and it's not linked to the synonym side of things. So I appreciate that was a slightly long answer, but hopefully, like you say, we're updating the database today, so hopefully most of those issues should go away, but obviously recommending that it is an iterative updates that we constantly have to do on the system. Obviously, there will be a slight lag in terms of updating the system and then updating the spreadsheets, but we'll try to keep that to an absolute minimum. And then obviously there's a couple of ways to resolve that should you face any issues. So hopefully that answers that question.
Thank you very much, Jason. I've got another question here now. So this question is, for low risk goods from Ireland, is pre-notification required?
So for low risk goods, no. So there's no pre-notification needed or the need for phytosanitary certificates if your goods are from the EU. So obviously Ireland in this case. So yeah, no pre-notification, no phytosanitary certificate. Obviously, that's only in relation to plants and plant products. If you're moving other goods, such products of animal origin, and then you will have to check in with the relative policy teams within DEFRA. But I appreciate that this is a plants focused session. Sorry, Tom.
Not to worry at all. Thank you very much. Really helpful addition there, Jason. Another question here. So this question asks, can I appeal or otherwise influence the categorization of a commodity?
So on this one, obviously, RIT's categorisation is determined independently by experts across the UK government and the devolved governments, and it's not possible to appeal this determination. But however, like you say, categorisation is dynamic, and a commodity may move to different risk categories if it's deemed necessary, sort of by the plant health risk group, either because, like you say, there could be ecological changes or the pest has spread in various areas. So it can be changed, but you can't appeal the decision.
Thanks again, Jason. I've got another question here. So how soon before arrival at BCP do notifications for truck deliveries need raising? Is it still 4 hours?
Do you want me to take that one, Tom?
That would be great. Thank you, Vicky.
Yeah, so pre-notification needs to be submitted at least 4 hours before the goods arrive into Great Britain if entering via air or ro-ro. All other forms of transport, for example, deep sea freight, need to give 24 hours or 1 day's notice.
Yeah, I think just to add to that bit as well, I think one of the key considerations here that will help with sort of the efficiencies at the border is making sure that it's as accurate as you possibly can get that time as well. So it's the time that consignment could be available for inspection. So like you say, even though, like you say, it's the 4 hours pre-notification that we need, that enables the competent authorities to be able to get their resources in place and sort of determine whether certain goods need to be inspected. But getting that accurate that timing accurate is absolutely vital. And like you say, it will be from when those goods are made available at that inspection point. So do take into account the fact that in some instances your truck will get off the ferry, but that's not meaning that it's necessarily available for inspection as soon as it's got off the ferry, and either because the lorry needs to drive to the BCP or the control point. So please do take that into account as well.
That's great. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Jason. Got a couple more questions coming through now, so this is really great. Next question. When there is no longer a requirement to pre-notify from 17th November, will CDS also be updated to reflect this? Not sure which one of you two wants to take that.
I can pick that one up. Yeah, so the low vegetables will not require pre-notification from the 17th of November. Says here that this is in relation to the origin goods, and yet CDS to the N851 license will apply to those EU goods.
Okay, thank you very much, Jason. Another question here. What are the requirements for cut flowers like roses, origin, non-EU, which are imported in the EU and that are exported to the UK?
Yeah, I can answer that one. So in this sort of scenario, like you say, I'm assuming it's maybe like Kenyan cut roses go into Netherlands and then go on to GB. The main thing around this is that it would only be considered EU origin if it has entered circulation within the EU. So obviously it would be in the internal market in the EU. Then under agriculture an EU member state, 5% consider that of EU origin goods. Obviously, if the goods do not clear customs within the EU states, then it would be considered to be of non-EU origin.
Okay, thank you very much, Jason. I can see we've got a couple more questions coming in, so I'm just going to take a look at that Q&A document. Okay, we've got another one that's come through here. When will the iPaths mass upload be made workable? Okay.
I'm assuming.
Sorry, Jason.
I was just going to. Sorry, Tom. I'm assuming in relation to mass upload, like you say, we're talking about the CSV file. So I think what would be useful is understanding sort of the issues that you're facing, if any, with the CSV file. So you can email the address slide in front of you to a few more details, and obviously, like you say, we can look into those particular elements.
Thank you very much for that, Jason. Okay, so that is all of the questions. So thank you very much to those that asked them, and thank you very much to Jason and Vicky for providing those answers. And that will just leave us now for me to reiterate our thanks for everyone who's joined us this afternoon. The session's been recorded and will be available for viewing shortly. If we could please ask you to fill in a final poll on the screen to let us know how you found the session and anything further that we can add future sessions to make them as useful as possible. I'll just leave that up there for a minute or so for you to provide some answers. Okay, and as you can see, we have 3 QR codes on the screen. So make sure you stay up to date with the latest plant health news by signing up for our weekly newsletter. And also sign up for one of our BTOM online sessions, and make sure you visit the Plant Health portal for more BTOM guidance. So thank you very much and goodbye.